Detroit, once America's richest city, spiraled into bankruptcy and ruin. Streets emptied, neighborhoods burned, and the American dream faded. But today, Detroit is rising from the ashes, rebuilding its skyline and reigniting hope. How did Detroit fall so far, and how is it climbing back? Welcome back to Maps Explained, where we uncover the history and mysteries your geography class never taught you. By the end of this video, you'll understand the real reasons behind Detroit's epic rise and fall, and discover the hidden drivers behind its recent comeback. Founded in 1701 by French explorer Antoine Lomé de la Mothe Cadillac, Detroit was strategically positioned on the Detroit River, quickly becoming a bustling fur-trading hub. The British later took control, and by the early 1800s, Detroit had grown into a critical port city, connecting Great Lakes trade to the rest of America. The 19th century brought rapid industrialization, boosted by shipping, railways, and manufacturing. Detroit thrived as lumber, tobacco, and pharmaceuticals industries flourished, setting the stage for its next explosive chapter. But nothing would compare to the transformation awaiting Detroit at the turn of the 20th century. As America entered the industrial age, Detroit's central location and innovative spirit primed it perfectly for the automotive boom. The city was about to undergo an unprecedented revolution, becoming synonymous with progress and prosperity.
Detroit is the quintessential city of the 20th century. It was born really out of small-scale manufacturing businesses that evolved here in the late 19th century, and then they were brought together by these emerging new companies, particularly through Ford.
In the early 20th century, Detroit was the epicenter of America's Industrial Revolution, producing 80% of the world's cars by the 1950s. The Big Three, Ford, GM, Chrysler, transformed Detroit into America's richest city per capita, driven by Ford's revolutionary assembly line that churned out a new car every 24 seconds.
Henry Ford established the Ford Motor Company in Detroit, whose Rouge River Industrial Complex quickly became the largest integrated factory in the world by 1932, with over 100,000 workers and 120 miles of conveyor belts in its massive factory.
In 1923, Charlie Chaplin observed Henry Ford's modern assembly line in operation. 63,000 workers building the world's most popular car, the Model T. The assembly line changed history.
Hundreds of thousands flocked to Detroit, boosting its population to 1.85 million by 1950. Factory workers earned double the national average wage, sparking explosive middle-class growth and vibrant communities. But the city's success story didn't end there.
First, it was easier for the steel mills to locate where coal and iron could easily come together. Later, the automotive industry also located near steel mills, so they could more easily take advantage of all the people already trained in manufacturing.
Simpletons, obedient simpletons. That's what they're looking for. And you see that exemplified in the Charlie Chaplin picture, where you see Charlie after 8 hours on the assembly line, and both of his hands go through a jerky screw motion, because that's what he did all day.
At its peak, Detroit saw a population surge of 350% between 1910 and 1950, flooding neighborhoods and businesses with consumer spending, creating unmatched economic vitality.
By the year 1930, Detroit's population had soared to over 1.5 million, making it the fourth largest city in the United States.
Detroit invested millions into theaters, stadiums, and roads. It boasted the second largest theater district in the U.S., second only to New York, cementing its cultural dominance. The city's diverse economy included over 250 financial institutions, such as the Detroit Trust Company and Manufacturers National Bank, and pioneering tech firms like Parke-Davis Pharmaceuticals and Burroughs Adding Machine Company, reinforcing Detroit's economic power beyond auto manufacturing. But one hidden factor secretly fueled Detroit's prosperity. Immigrants comprised 30% of Detroit's population by 1930, dramatically boosting small businesses and local innovation.
The assembly line changed history, and it changed the lives of the $5 a day workforce that so desperately wanted a job. Italians escaping fascism, Russians fleeing the czars, Southern blacks seeking opportunity and equality, workers separated by language and culture, but united in the search for a better life for themselves and their families.
Cheap mortgages enabled Detroit factory workers to own homes at unprecedented rates. By 1960, 65% of homes were owner-occupied, amplifying city wealth. Bootleggers like the notorious Purple Gang secretly infused millions into Detroit's economy through speakeasies, gambling rings, and illegal distilleries. They reinvested profits into legitimate real estate and local businesses, quietly bolstering the city's economy. Yet Detroit's brightest days were numbered. Segregation, police brutality, and economic disparity created explosive tensions. On July 23, 1967, a police raid on an illegal bar ignited 5 days of devastating riots. Over 7,200 arrests were made, and 43 people passed away.
Tensions exploded in July 1967 when Detroit experienced one of the largest urban riots of that time, further accelerating the city's decline. Sparked by a police raid on an unlicensed bar, the riot quickly turned into a full-blown uprising against systemic racism and police brutality.
The riots caused over $50 million in damage and accelerated suburban flight. Businesses closed, neighborhoods deteriorated, and Detroit's image became permanently scarred.
The real Detroit is a story of racism and apartheidism that has been hidden from society outside of Detroit. The native Detroiters know about it. 8 Mile once was not just a movie, but it was actually a wall that kept the African Americans out.
Oh, really?
A physical wall. Then when African Americans fought their way into living here in Detroit, they had to live in a place called Black Bottom, which is the middle of Detroit. They were not allowed out. Basically, Detroit was a sundown town. And then when African Americans were able to buy the land, the next thing that happened was the big businesses pulled out.
Oh.
And that's how our suburbs were created here in Detroit.
White flight.
Exactly. Whites decided to move out of Detroit. So European Americans took their business with them and refused to do any type of business with African Americans. And so that's the story that they don't want to say in the media.
Between 1950 and 2000, Detroit lost over half its population as middle-class families fled to suburbs, crippling tax revenues. But the hidden tragedies were even worse.
Not just white flight, but certainly by the 1970s, black middle-class flight.
Following World War II, Detroit saw a significant shift in its demographics take place. Specifically, during this time, many of Detroit's white residents began moving to the suburbs, a phenomenon known as white flight. This exodus was fueled by several factors, including the availability of affordable automobiles, as we saw earlier, suburban development and a trend towards suburbanization, and the construction of interstate highways that better allowed for commuting from the suburbs to the city. The city's manufacturing, which had been the foundation of its economy for decades, began to crumble. As factories closed or moved away, unemployment rates soared and crime began to rise.
New highways demolished vibrant black communities, displacing over 100,000 residents and permanently damaging Detroit's social fabric.
Would we rather have a new plant in a crowded urban area where it's going to take you a half an hour to get a truck from an urban location onto a freeway, or are you going to put it out in the suburbs where the freeway already exists?
I believe in the 50s, there were 10 or 15 new automotive plants built, all in the suburbs, none in the city of Detroit. So that growth really happened in Detroit, in the suburbs, and that has been the case for 60-some years.
Redlining systematically denied mortgages and insurance to black neighborhoods, restricting wealth accumulation and investment. This entrenched poverty and accelerated neighborhood decay across Detroit.
Discriminatory practices against minority buyers were unfortunately not uncommon, further stoking the fires of racial tensions in the already segregated city. Two major riots occurred in 1943 and in 1967.
By 2010, only 7% of Detroit public school students were proficient in reading due to chronic underfunding, poorly maintained facilities, and lack of qualified teachers, deepening the cycle of poverty. Decades of corruption involved bribery, nepotism, and misuse of public funds, leaving the city billions in debt. Political figures, such as Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick, faced major scandals that eroded public trust and accountability.
Kwame Kilpatrick has been sentenced to 28 years in prison for corruption. Before he was sentenced, Kilpatrick said he was sorry, but denied stealing from the city. He was convicted in March of racketeering, extortion, and tax crimes.
Unchecked corruption persisted due to inadequate oversight and a political culture of impunity, ultimately plunging Detroit into the largest municipal bankruptcy in U.S. history, $18 billion in debt by 2013.
Basically, the town became more expensive and less attractive for residents and businesses. Between 1950 and 1980, the city experienced a population loss of over 600,000.
Detroit lost 90% of its manufacturing jobs between 1950 and 2010 due to automation and globalization, devastating the local economy.
If it can travel fast enough, the distance doesn't really matter, right? This makes these functional regions look really messy and very globally connected. In response, the industrialization process has shifted as supply chains go through de-agglomeration, which is when supply chains are broken up and the pieces are moved to completely new places and configuration. It can take a painfully long time for the unemployed to find new jobs, and any new jobs in the region may not employ the same people as those who lost jobs to the movement of industry.
Neglected vacant homes dominated Detroit's landscape, leaving 140 square miles of blighted areas.
So a city that at one time had 1.8 million people is now down to just over 1.5 million people by 1973, and then by 1980, only 1.1 million people. By the year 2000, there are far fewer than 1 million people that live in the city.
Detroit became ground zero for the 2008 foreclosure crisis, leaving 70,000 homes abandoned.
Chrysler filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in May of 2009, followed by General Motors a month later. As you can imagine, the bankruptcy of Chrysler and General Motors had a hugely negative impact on Detroit, making things much worse for a city that was already struggling with decades of industrial decline and population loss.
Between 2009 and 2015, nearly 100,000 Detroit homes faced illegal tax foreclosures, devastating neighborhoods. But Detroit wasn't finished yet. The 2013 bankruptcy slashed $7 billion from Detroit's debt, jump-starting its recovery. Essential city services improved, pensions stabilized, and the city regained financial breathing room. In 2013, Mike Duggan became Detroit's first white mayor in 40 years, promising sweeping reforms. Duggan tackled corruption head-on, streamlined city bureaucracy, and focused on neighborhood revitalization, fundamentally shifting the city's culture toward transparency and efficiency. His administration prioritized public safety, street lighting, and blight removal, instilling hope and optimism in a city desperate for leadership. Blight removal programs dramatically increased home values and neighborhood stability, improving safety and community pride.
Duggan has turned the page to a new chapter in Detroit's history, overseeing the renovation or demolition of 35,000 abandoned homes across the city. Fewer than 4,000 remain today.
Over $8 billion poured into Detroit from private investors, radically reshaping the downtown skyline.
I always tell people you can't talk on the phone about Detroit. There is an Amazon office, a big one here. There's a big Microsoft location here. LinkedIn has a big one, and Google has a big one.
Gilbert's also developing Hudson's Detroit, a skyscraper expected to house high-end apartments, office space, and a luxury hotel.
empty skyscrapers now host 500-plus tech startups and thousands of apartments, breathing new life into Detroit's core. Creative projects like the Heidelberg Project fostered community pride and grassroots economic revitalization.
Of stuffed animals, stuffed inside a boat, no less. Toys, stuffed animals, even the sidewalks. Created in memory of Thelma Woods. Why not check out a polling station right here in Heidelberg? I absolutely love it. This might be the creepiest thing in the entire project, and that's saying a lot.
Detroit invested nearly $300 million in public projects, rejuvenating parks, riverwalks, and streets.
A new 145,000 square foot skilled trades training center will help up to 1,500 Detroiters each year level up to get these great jobs.
They're going to just come to school an 8-hour day every 2 weeks. Their contractor pays them to come to school. You earn while you learn.
We've got more construction going on today than we've had in nearly 70 years between auto plants and hockey arenas and high-rise office buildings and housing projects.
Detroit's beloved sports teams, the Lions, Tigers, Pistons, and Red Wings, played a crucial role in restoring civic pride and community spirit. The teams invested heavily in new arenas and community outreach, rallying citizens and boosting local businesses. Their successes and community presence set the stage for renewed optimism, signaling Detroit's revival was truly underway. In 2023, for the first time in 70 years, Detroit's population rose, attracting 2,000 new businesses. In May 2025, Detroit hosted the largest robotics and automation event in the Americas. Yet, its future remains uncertain. Detroit's journey from prosperity to ruin to renewal reveals profound lessons about urban resilience and strategic innovation. Other cities can take notes from Detroit on the importance of transparent leadership, targeted investment in neighborhoods, and fostering community engagement. Cities struggling today can adopt Detroit's strategic demolition programs, public-private partnerships, and grassroots cultural initiatives to spark revival. By prioritizing transparency and community involvement, struggling cities everywhere can foster lasting recovery. If Detroit maintains its momentum, it could reclaim its former status as an economic and cultural powerhouse. Yet, risks remain. Failing to address inequality or sustain investment could plunge Detroit back into decay, repeating history's harsh lessons. Mayor Mike Duggan announced he won't run for a fourth term. His current term will end in January 2026. Will the next mayor pick up the torch and continue forward? Or will they let Detroit slide back into chaos? If you enjoyed exploring Detroit's incredible story, click like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Which city's hidden history should we cover next? If you enjoyed this video, you'll love these next two.